Good morning, my name is Maria Castelblanco, and today I'm with my partner, Angie Leal, and we are going to talk about the chapter 11, that is going to be about the quest for justice from the book, The Coding of the American Mind. So to start, we are going to talk about the introduction about this chapter. Basically in this chapter, we are going to talk about the social justice and also the different types of this social justice according with the arrows. Also, we are going to explore some meanings of this term and the embrace of one version, and also we are going to criticize some others. So first, we need to know that the period of emotional intense national party, it was in the year of 1968 and the years around it. So that means that it was basically from 1965 to 1972. And also we found some resources on the chapter about the political scientists that are called Jerry Jutsa and Andrew Gelman. They examined some boring parents of the Americans to see whether the political events or the political climate of their childhood left some kind of mark on people's later political behavior and orientation. So basically in this research, they found that there is a window of higher impressionability running from about age or from 15 to the 24, which is a peak right around the age of 18 years old. So we are going to show you the table that we saw also in the chapter. In this table, we can see some examples about the major news stories related to what is commonly known as social justice. So for example, in this table, we can see some important events in North America, in United States, and also in some other countries. So for example, we can see in the year 2009, we see the inauguration of Barack Obama. Also, we see some murders from, for example, Trayvon Martin, that it was from the Sandy Hook school. So it was a mass shooting in that school. And also we see some police killing, for example, from Michael Brown in Missouri. Also a police killing from Eric Garner in New York. So we have seen in this table different types of events that has occurred in the United States, and that kind of events has become extremely important to fight or to try to see the social justice in a different ways. So also we see today's college students has lived through extraordinary times. And as the result, so many of them have developed an extraordinary passion from the social justice. So the arrows on this chapter, they're going to talk about, for example, the social justice activism. Also, they are going to include some racial equality. And also they are going to talk about some, for example, sexual harassment and assault, and different types of events that we need to control in order to get a social justice. So in this case, we are going to talk about the different types of social justice that talk the authors about this chapter. So the first it is called the intuitive justice. So basically in this topic, they talk about the justice is arguably the most important moral concept in the history of Western philosophy. Also, the intuitive justice is basically the combination of the distributive justice that we are going to see in a couple minutes, that it's basically the perception that the people have about that it's getting what it's deserved. So they need to have what they think that it deserved for them. And also it's the relation about the procedural justice. So basically this is the perception that the process by which the things and distribute and all the rules are enforced in a fair and in a justice way. Also another topic or another type of justice that we have is the restrictive justice. So in this part, it's necessary to recognize the importance of proportionality. So in this case, for example, we talk about the developmental psychologists, Christina Starmans and Mark Sheskin, and also Paul Bloom. They have a research about the fairness in children, and they conclude that humans naturally favor fair distributions, not equal ones. So basically this means that when we are children, so we need to always start to think about do the things in a justice way, or like give it the other like in a proportional way. And also with the others, we see that sometimes distributive justice calls for equality. For example, when there is a deceased parent and the money should be given for each in an equal way to each children or to each son. So this is, for example, inequality. But also in this case, we can see that it's normally the one of the children or one of the sons, so it can be like more interesting about their parents. So also sometimes that distributive justice calls for inequality. For example, with a family or a group that has some communal feeling and that thinks that it's fair and proper to route resources to whoever needs the most. So also it's like it can be an equality and inequality depending on the context and on the process that we are following. And also they talk about the equity theory, the major theory of distributive justice in social psychologists. So we see, for example, a figure that talks about the outcomes and the inputs, so that you need to be like equal in your outcomes and also in the other person outcomes, and also in the inputs. So basically this figure that we're looking here on the screen, they talk about that the people choose track of the ratio of everyone outcomes to their inputs. When the ratios are equal, so people receive the things are fair. So basically all the people's outcomes and the people inputs need to be equal in this way. So we can see here on the figure.
Hello, my name is Angie, and I will explain you the procedural justice. This is a type of justice of then to the part. Remember, that is the justice that when a person receives what he deserves. In that sense, the procedural justice has the work to give a process that gives dignity to a person. For example, when a person will judge to someone else, the person implicated has to receive dignity through two concerns. First, how will be taken the decision? So the person that will judge has to be transparent and neutral and don't have prejudices in the case that he will judge. And the second one, the idea is that the involucrated person could have a voice to argument his point of view about the case. For example, we'll see this in a research that did Tyler and Juhen about the procedural justice. In different cities of California, they investigated that some people who had like a dark skin had similar perceptions about procedural justice. But the problem is that they had different thinkings about the police treatments that they received. Why? Because some police groups could have prejudices about a minority group, or in another part is that people with dark skin couldn't express their thinkings or ideas about the case. So in the next type of justice, we'll see the proportional procedural social justice. In this case, we'll see a relationship between the distributive justice, as you know, is when a person can receive something tangible or intangible in equal parts between different people. And that relationship is correlated with the procedural justice, that is the process that gives dignity to someone. So this type of justice has the work to involucrate it or make some interventions to people who were born in social disadvantages or poverty. For example, when some governments try to make some social campaigns to decrease the levels of lack of nutrition or lack to access to education. So I can give you another example about the tyranny of the majority. That is a book written by Guinea, where he exposed that imagine that a high school will have a dance, and the students can vote for the favorite songs that they want to listen there. In that case, we have to take into account that the 80% of the students have light skin, and the another 20% has another race. So the procedural justice, it works because the people can express their point of view. But the problem is that the intuitive justice doesn't work there, because how can we wait that a minority group can win that vote campaign? So we can evidentiate here that is a lack of social justice that tries to avoid every violation of human or civil rights, and with more connotation in a minority group. And we can evidentiate it here with the lack of the democracy.
Okay, and also another important type of social justice that we see under chapter 11. So it's about the equal outcomes social justice. Basically, this talks about that sometimes we can see that there's a kind of injustice that it's operating in different events of our lives. So in this part, they talk about exactly, for example, the inequality about women and men on different contexts. So basically, they say that the available research suggests that girls and women are often as interested as boys and men in getting physical exercise, but not in playing team sports. So, for example, they give us an example about this, that it's talking about the men who wrote for the association are all the students at the University of Virginia. So they talk about that the university does not provide like all the equal sports for women and men. So they, for example, found that they must each pay more than $1,000 a year to belong to the association. And also they are required to participate in the Rent a Rover program in order to raise money for the boats, also for the coaching staff, for the travel that they to do for participate in some races. So they need to spend a lot of money in that. So also, for example, they share a boat house on the Urbana versus with the UPS women's rowing team. So in that part, we're talking about the men. So they need to do all these things in order to be part of this team and in order to participate in different races. On the other hand, we can see that, for example, for women, so basically all the expenses that includes the travel, the coaching staff, the snacks, the boardhouse. So they basically all these things are fully funded by the university. So in this case, we can see that there is an inequality in the women's and in the men's in this university, because normally the men need to do a lot of things in order to get the resources to receive the money and also to participate in different races. So in that part, we can see that there's a inequality in this case. And also men and women should feel that it's equality easy to obtain a sports related scholarship or a slot on a team, because in this case also about the University of Virginia, so they can found different types of inequality. And also, for example, men, they need to do more things in order to get a scholarship. So it will be like difficult for them also to obtain this. And also we can see this graphic about the men's outcomes and the men's inputs. So in that part also we need to follow and we need to be aware of this. This figure basically talks about when male rowers must raise their own money. So as I told you before, they need to pay all the things basically about the team that they are. And the ratio of outcomes to inputs is much lower than the ratio for female rowers who are supported by the university. So In this part, basically the authors talk about the equality that we need to follow, not only talking about men and women, but also talking about, for example, the race, the religion. So we need to be equal in each scenario. In each scenario, and also it's depending on the context that we have, but it's important to be aware of this and also to take into account this type of social justice that we're looking here.
In this case, we'll see the correlation doesn't imply causation. First, we have to know what is correlation. That is a term that determines the relationship between some variables that can change through the time. And I will give you an example to explain you these 4 categories. So the first one, we'll see an example about 7,500 German households. And we'll think that A is the variable sex, B, money, and C, talkative people. In this case, if we had take into account these households, we'll think that they have 4 times sex per week. And for that reason, they can earn more through 2% than households that only have sex once per week. But what happened if we reverse this causation? What happened if people that earn more money have more sex per week? It could be a possibility. And there's an article that argues that only talkative people can have more sex and more money per week. And it's true, it's made by Tellock, that article. And what happened if money and sex that are not correlated? So what happened with these 4 categories? We can try to explain some causations, but the idea is to test them and prove it to don't generate more deficient academic theories that can be deficient for our fields of education. So in conclusion, we want to ask you some questions about our presentation. In the first one, I would like that you think about the democracy. So in this case, I would like that you think about the example that I gave you of the dancing high school to answer this question. In the next one, we'll see what are the limits of the social justice. And the third one, I would like that you think if you consider there is an injustice to see that the intuitive justice is corrupted. So thanks for your attention and we see you in class.
Thank you so much, guys, and teacher.